So what's going on, YouTube? Final series from the first qualifiers in Red Bull Wololo 3. Chris versus Daniel. The legend returns. It's a North American showdown. We will have Daniel playing Haboob, Atacama, and Sacred Springs as his home maps. Kawasan, Winged, and Acclivity will be Chris's home maps. We have the Civ draft over here. Vikings and Saracens are the snipes from Daniel and Chris. Daniel will be left with Tatars, Slavs, Khmer, Ethiopians, Malians, Mayans, and Incas, and Indians. Something that's like super strong on Sacred Springs because of the extra shore fishing. Regardless of what you do as a build order or as a unit composition, that extra food income is like insane. Other side, Magyars, Franks, Aztecs, Huns, Berbers, Lithuanians, Britons, and Chinese will be left for our Canadian legend, who is, I think, having the first major 1v1 tournament after his comeback. Someone can probably confirm me. I'm not sure if Chris played in King of Desert, but even if he played, he didn't advance very far. Chris, he seems like he didn't play King of Desert. He played a 2v2 World Cup in a team, but he didn't actually play the King of the Desert tournament, which means that Chris, this is gonna be his first big 1v1 tournament ever since his return to competitive Age of Empires. It's very fun that a couple of weeks ago he said on stream that he's just here to stream and play Age of Empires for fun. He doesn't have any plans on being competitive, and he's on the doorstep of qualifying for a $30,000 tournament over here. Daniel, on the other hand, came into this series beating Jordan in the previous round. He played well, but he also made some mistakes, both execution and decision-making mistakes. And what I said when I was casting that series is that I feel like he needs to clean these. He needs to clean his gameplay up a little bit, polish his decision-making, because there are a lot of areas where such mistakes could actually be fatal. So I feel like Daniel needs to clean up his game a tiny bit, but he's a strong candidate to win this one, and it's a good opportunity for him to get into the main event. Next week is going to be much harder. I think that one thing that Chris doesn't have with Empire Wars is experience. I'm fairly certain that Daniel has a lot more experience in Empire Wars than Chris does. Chris probably practiced a lot, but that doesn't change the fact that Daniel probably has a little bit more experience. Daniel, I don't think he ever actually got into Red Bull event. I'll have to double check. I know that he played in many of the qualifiers, but Daniel, he plays the 17 to 32nd in King of Desert 3, and yeah, there is no logs that would actually show him as a participant in a main event for Red Bulls. In fact, his log doesn't even have qualifiers on, so there's a chance this is the first qualifiers for Daniel as well, which would be surprising. There is also an interesting side story to this one. The clan for Chris is IL, Infinity Legends. It was a clan that was created from many not players like Chris, Kaposh, Ryut, and that was the original clan. But a couple of weeks ago, well, not even a couple of weeks ago, this is like a fresh new story, the Infinite Legends team took over the roster of Petgumpet, which was kind of an up-and-coming team of young players like Project Belgium, like Daniel, for example, like Angelina Jolie. So this is basically also a fight between teammates, clanmates. They haven't really played any team game tournaments or anything together. But that doesn't change the fact that, as you see, both of them are wearing the IL clan tag. I wonder if they actually practiced against each other. There is a chance they did. But, well, it's an IL warfare. The old legend Chris, a player that has been playing for an insane amount of time and really just a legend of the AoE scene, returns to Age of Empires. And he's on the doorstep of qualifying to Red Bull Wololo 3. And let's not forget, when Chris returned, he had no idea what Civ or what the new civilizations were all about. He had to specifically learn civ by civ. I remember that what Chris did was had an alphabetical order for the civs to learn, and he started that on his stream every day. He tried kind of learning one civilization, or at least the characteristics of those. Still, there is probably a lot of dark areas for Chris in the Definitive Edition meta. And we're going to have him on the northern part of the map playing as Chinese. Down south is going to be Daniel as Mayans. Traditional matchup over here. Interesting Mayans pick in the first game from Daniel, but I'm actually a fan of that. And honestly, versatility is on the side of Chinese, but I actually prefer Mayans in like early to mid game. Anyways, Chris, what is that farm? I have no idea what that farm was. But maybe it's something that he knows about. Maybe just misclick. Anyways, we're gonna have some fast vols over here from Daniel. He's committing 2 vultures on the far right side to vol. He doesn't have an easily volable base, and he's going for an archer play. If you're doing an archer play against an archer range build as well, and apparently Daniel is going to see the archer range, what you do is go eagles and archers. That's exactly what Daniel is going for, and that's a nice early aggression over there for him. That vulture is refusing to die though. That eagle is doing disturbingly low damage on that vulture, and honestly, I think that Daniel was hoping for some more damage output from those eagles, because that was kind of disappointing, to be honest. 2 eagles trying to kill 1 vulture and wasn't even able to damage it by a massive margin. Meanwhile, it looks like Chris is trying to deny the huntables over here with his scout. He's a fast player, so he's gonna have his moments where he will be able to get some damage done while he's also taking other fights elsewhere. Like, he could take that straggler archer off, but here's why the eagles are so dominant in an archer versus archer civilization. This is why meso archer builds, like meso civ archer builds, are very, very dominant against non-meso civ archer builds. It's because you can mix in eagles, and that gives you an insane advantage. That being said, Chris is doing an excellent job not losing a single will to this one, as I'm saying that's 1 villager down, and this is looking pretty bad. The problem against the meso eagle archer opening feels bad. So the problem versus the meso archer and eagle opening is that skirmishers won't work, because the skirmishers don't kill the eagles, and what we have seen from Daniel here is like a near perfect execution of the eagle plus archer opening. You can do this with Aztecs a tiny bit better, but Mayans work just as fine for this. I mean, at this point, Chris is probably dead. He lost 2 villagers over here. That archer is gonna get picked off, and he's gonna have no army. No army, this gold mine is wide open. And it's not like he can actually stop the reinforcements. There will be more and more and more. And just 1 or 2 archers won't actually stop this, because there is eagles mixed in. This is why it's awfully hard to battle this. One of, I think, the strongest build orders in Empire Wars is the eagle plus archer build. That was a blink and you missed the game? Yes, that is correct. This game had 2 kills in it, I believe. No, actually more. 6 kills, 1 death, that's it. 3 minutes. 3 minutes game time. 3 minutes 46. I remember that in the main event of Red Bull, we also had games like this, where you just blink. I was always telling my viewers when I was casting qualifiers in the previous Red Bull events that be careful when you go to the bathroom, because you might miss a game. And that's true for Red Bull. Sometimes games end in like 5 seconds. Well, not 5 seconds, but you get what I mean. They end super, super fast. Well, that happened. We didn't get a lot smarter from the outcome of that game, to be honest. Like, that could happen in any matchup, but it definitely is not great for Chris that he loses a game like that, because, let's be honest, I mean, that's a free win for Daniel. He didn't even have to fight for it. So Daniel's like, okay, let's start. Boom, I won. Anyways, we're gonna have Tatars versus Aztecs over here, a sort of traditional matchup for acclivity. And let's see what Chris thinks about this one. I would massively prefer Aztecs over here. Same reasons as I preferred Mayans at the beginning of the game compared to Chinese. This is exactly what Chris has to do now. The same good old Archer plus Eagle build. Actually, Aztecs are a little bit better with this one, because Aztecs get a production speed bonus on their military buildings, and that helps immensely when you're trying to get the Eagles out. The main bottleneck of this build is getting the Eagles out in Feudal Age, so this is why Aztecs is probably the best Meso Civ for Empire Wars, because being able to pop out those Eagles a little bit faster is immensely helpful. Anyways, Archer build as well for Daniel, but it's going to be the exact same problem that Chris faced in the previous game, that Daniel is going to face now. How do you stop Archers versus Eagles? Eagles will just tank up the arrow fire from the opponent's Archers, and like the best thing that Daniel can do is voe himself. However, most of these wood lines and resources can be denied by Archers, so that alone isn't actually a solution. However, you also have to add that if you voe yourself, you can use skirms. The difference between this game and the Arabia game could be that while on the Arabia game you couldn't go for skirms because the Eagles picked them off, here you can actually go skirms because, you know, you have voes. Or at least I assume you have voes. That could be an easy will pick over here for Chris if he commits to it. He does not. And that's a bad fight. He's going to lose an Archer, he's going to lose an Eagle. And, well, just trying to finish off that scout right now. That is his entire plan. Trying to make sure that, you know, that scout isn't going to pick up his reinforcements. But now, Eagles are on top of those Archers, and the Archers will go down pretty fast. And it looks like we're going to have double range Archers alongside Spears. That's a bit of a misplay from Chris over here. He doesn't need Spears. Not sure why he's going for that. Maybe misclick, maybe he thinks, no, this is definitely not misclick. I think he assumes that his opponent is actually going scouts, but that's not true. That was the starting scout. That was an overreaction from Chris and a massively misjudged situation. If Daniel was actually going for scouts, the Spearman addition would be nice, but here it makes zero sense. And you would need the barracks to produce Eagles, that's the problem here. That you need the barracks time to keep making Eagles. That being said, Daniel's gold mine is under heavy pressure and here comes a tower, so Chris plays super aggro on this map. And honestly, if that tower goes up, Daniel is sorta dead. Because you're not gonna fight this one without Archers anytime soon. Chris bringing in the towers in this one. As I said, the difference between the Arabia here and this game is that here you can actually make skirms because the walls protect you from the Eagles. Meanwhile, for the Arabia game, Chris couldn't make skirms because the Eagles just pick off skirms in open field. I wonder if Daniel knows that this is open. But yeah, it looked like this is not a tower that Chris can get up. However, that could also be good enough for Chris as well, because he forced the defensive tower from Daniel. Okay, Daniel has stone from the defensive tower here as well. So after cancelling that one, he still has enough stone to do that. And it looks like Chris changes an angle once again. There's just not enough Eagles here for Chris. Why did he stop making Eagles? What do the Spearmen do here for him? If he had 3 Eagles here, instead of these Spearmen and 1 Eagle, he would be able to just destroy this army easily, because the Eagle would smash the skirmishers. And I don't know why Chris stopped making Eagles. That's a mistake from him. A mistake that could cost him the game, because he would be able to press on and finish off his opponent if he actually had some meat shield in front of those Archers and skirms. The missing ingredient for Chris right now is the Eagle Warriors, or Eagle Scouts, and that is why those skirms are killing everything. Chris has no answer to the skirms, and that is a misplay from Chris. That is a misplay, and it is always with Meso Civs in Empire Wars. Archer and Skirm, or Archer and Eagle. It's not just Archer. If you play standard Archer, you throw away your Meso Civ, basically. You have to keep adding Eagles, and as I said, I feel like in a Meso Civ case for Empire Wars, adding Eagles constantly on your barracks is just as important as adding villagers on your TC in any other game. That's basically it. Maybe Chris was just microing and he forgot about the barracks, I don't know. But consistent Eagle production is essential. Otherwise, you will get overrun by skirmishers, and unlike other civs, like, let's say, any non-meso civ, that can mix in scouts against the skirms, you can do that. So, you are much more exposed to a full skirmisher aggression if you do not have a consistent eagle production. Because it's much easier to get 2 or 3 scout cavalry out for non-meso civs than it is to get the eagles out for the meso civs. So you are heavily relying on a consistent eagle production on your barracks, and I feel like that wasn't there for Chris, and now he's slowly getting overrun and forced to take bad engagements. Daniel has a 6 villagers lead, by the way. I'm not sure how that actually happened. He's Tatar, so his food eco is pretty nice. He doesn't have horse color, but maybe Chris had some idle time on the TC. Yeah, this game is over. Look at that idle time on Chris's TC. 2 minutes 40 seconds. That is 160 seconds. Every 25 seconds you make that TC idle, you lose a villager. So that is a nice and comfy 5 villagers lost here. Actually more. That's actually 6 villagers difference. Now it's 10, this game is over. And this can all be traced back to Chris not having eagles on the field when he had the option to push this gold mine. He lost a crucial fight here. I'm not sure about the Spearman addition early on. I feel like he just misjudged his opponent's build and he thought it's going to be a switch into scouts. But the thing is that the lack of eagles in this fight, which would have finished off the skirms and tanked the arrow fire, made him lose this battle, and from this point on, he's just getting pushed pretty hard over here, and Tatars also have a good eco, so it's not like the Tatar player has a much worse eco than the Aztec one. I don't think that Chris is realizing how much behind he is. Probably there's a lot of things happening at the same time, and that's it's very hard to actually see in numbers or actually feel when you're playing how much idle time you had on your TC. But if Chris saw this number, he would probably also say, yeah, it's over. And it's so over. It's 12 villagers lead, and honestly, based on these first 2 games, I have a serious question. How did Chris 3-0 Bhakti? I mean, Bhakti also is known for being very, very inconsistent as a player and sometimes having some awful games. But come on, 3-0ing Bhakti, it's either him or it's either Bhakti playing really bad or Chris playing much better than today. But it has to be one of the two. I haven't seen a single game of those series, but now I'm curious how that actually unfolded, because this is weird. Daniel's playing good. Like, Daniel's actually delivering the level I expected him to do. Not crystal clean, but good enough, and good quality gameplay. He's going up to Castle Age right now. And this is also once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Daniel, because the main event is only going to hold 16 players, and if you would list your top 16 players in competitive Age Vampires, Daniel probably wouldn't be in that top 16. So he's gonna have a huge shot at getting into the main event already, which is huge. It's just enormous, and it's very likely that in the second qualifiers, when there is a lot more high-level players, as we discussed before in previous qualifiers, that more high-level players means that there is more chance of stumbling and a higher chance of just ultimately losing to one of the higher-level players coming against you. Now, here's the thing. Chris finds a way into Castle Age. And he's gonna try and get to Eagles. The problem is that Daniel should be one step ahead, and Daniel should know it's an Eagle switch. It has to be an Eagle switch. Why? Because Daniel is heavy on crossbows. So what Daniel has to do, get crossbow and botkin because he has the resources for it, but then start making knights. Exactly. Once again, I think Daniel is playing right. He is doing very, very few mistakes right now. And here's the problem. Aztec Eagles would work if you have the stronger army, or like a stronger eco, and you would actually be able to use them to raids. The problem is that by the time these Eagles are upgraded to Eagle Warriors, there will be about 5-ish knights on the field, and you really are relying on your Eagles to try and win fights against the knights. These knights also have +1/+1, so the thing is that you really need Eagle numbers fast, as Eagle Warriors, not just Eagle Scouts, to be able to deal with the early knights. And you have to deal with the early knights and then start raiding, otherwise you will just get overrun by knights. And once Daniel sees that it's a full Eagle switch, it's going to be 4 knights from him. Eagle Warrior plus defense just coming in for Chris. But I mean, look at all the idle time. Look at all the idle time. I mean, that's already worth it. That's going to be some farms being sniped as well, I believe. And Chris is just waiting for one decisive engagement, but unless a miracle happens here, this is not gonna work for him. Like, 32 to 28 is military numbers, but it's 15 villagers advantage right now for Danny Boy. And as I said, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Daniel here. Probably the best chance he has had in a career to play in a huge prize money event. Because right now, it seems like he is gonna have a relatively easy way into the main event. A main event that would actually be stacked with very, very high-level players. And Chris has to delete that. Does he? Yeah, he has to delete that house. So a lot of expert players are not in the main event yet, like Vivi, for example, or Lix, or Tim, or MBL isn't in the main event yet. So an opportunity for Daniel to get into the main event before these players is enormous, just as much as this victory was. Things pretty much fell apart for Chris after this engagement. Lack of production on the barracks hurt him so badly, just as much as this DC idle time. 5 minutes DC idle time basically means that he fell behind by 6 villagers just because of DC idle time. And that's actually extremely influential. One of the things that separates a good player from like a casual is being able to keep the TC constantly working. That's one of the things that, like, every time, like, for example, you ask an expert player on, hey, what do I have to improve? They will say, okay, keep the TC working. That's obviously, it's not easy here for Chris because there's a lot of things to do and it's a high level tournament. So obviously it's not, I'm not saying that he's bad. I'm just saying that it explains why he lost. Because when he looks at the recorded game, he's also going to see that he just fell behind by 6 villagers because he didn't have villager production. So, with that, game number 2 is done, and I'm honestly not sure how Chris beat the Bhakti if he performed like this. Let's hope that Chris is actually able to step his game up because, let's say that I wasn't really convinced by Chris in the first games. In fact, I was far from convinced from Chris. And I was looking forward to this series because this is a very interesting matchup, and so far, I think that part of this can be associated with the fact that Chris is a long-time expert player, and the game used to be a little bit slower back then, and also, this is already a very fast-paced start. And the thing is that he has to just get into shape and, more importantly, get to the speed of these games. And it's not as easy as it sounds like. It takes months, if not years, to come back into this high speed. And honestly, as I said, Empire Wars is even fast for those players that are accustomed to the speed of competitive Age of Empires nowadays. So this is actually a huge challenge for Chris, who's playing Hans on the right side in yellow. Interesting decision for this map. It's a hybrid map, so we could see a dog coming in from him. Other side, we're gonna have Daniel with Incas. And guess what? Here is the play for Daniel then. If it's archers from Chris, it has to be Eagle and Archer. If it's scouts, it has to be Spear and Archer. And this is why it's so hard to beat Mesosevs in 1v1 Empire Wars, because they have a very quick move against basically any build that you can actually do. The best thing that Chris can do here is Scout and Skirm, and I think that's the plan, and that would be a good plan for him. So, Archer's on the way for Danny Boy, who's actually going to try and attempt to vow himself. Ambitious, but I mean, if he vows this side, let's say, at least it gives him a little bit more freedom on the left side. So even if he isn't fully walled, just a bit of walling can actually help limit the amount of angles where he's exposed at. And that helps at positioning the Spearman and making sure that he doesn't lose villagers to early raids. Because Mobility advantage will likely be in the hands of Chris over here, who's getting double ranges in. So scouts and double range archers, apparently Chris wants to go full aggro in H2 here, because scouts double range archers, but Daniel, those bow-up trees definitely have some holes in between them, and that's a beautiful find for Chris. That's an excellent start, probably the best start that he has had to a game. Tries to isolate that villager and pick it off, and that will be a nice pick off. Meanwhile, villagers trying to trap that army of scouts over there, and at the end of the day, they just trap themselves. Spearman is out now. The problem for Chris will be that this army is going to be tough to stop. There is Spearman, there is archers in here. If Chris micros this right, he can pick off the Spearman with archers and then take an engagement with the scouts. So this is actually looking better for Chris. The first game that actually looks better for Chris. At the beginning, I like the defensive tower as well, because it guarantees that you have a save gold unless you screw something up really, really badly. But at the end of the day, Chris will group up his scouts, and he needs to pick off the spear here. That's basically how you play this. Pick off the spear, use the scouts to kill the eagles and the archers. It's a tricky micro, but this is the moment where you kill the spear. Nicely done by Chris over there, and now you just let the scouts rain death and destruction. It's much easier to replace the scouts than it is to replace the eagles, because eagles train a lot longer. So any fight in which Chris is losing basically even amounts of scouts to even amounts of eagles, I would say that that's a win for Chris, because it's much easier to replenish the scouts, especially with the faster working Hunnic stable. This is looking good for the Canadian, and maybe the first game that he's gonna have an advantage in going into deeper feudal age. Anyways, Chris is also going to start adding a fishing eco over here, something that Daniel isn't planning on doing so. Now, the thing is that if you add fishing eco here, your eco is going to be a tiny bit weaker at the beginning, because you are actually making a very significant resource investment. We are talking about 300 wood here and a bunch of wood as well in the form of fishing ships, and that can be punished by an aggressive full-on land push. However, once that fishing eco starts kicking in, you're gonna be able to really catch up and potentially even take over in terms of economy. Why 2 docks? I think there can be two reasons for 2 docks. Number one, you want to get the fishing ships out fast, which basically decreases the time you have to wait until the fishing eco actually starts influencing the game and starts to show in land unit numbers as well. Number 2, he might assume that his opponent has a dock over here, and having 2 docks helps you get fire galleys out a little bit faster in case you get attacked. But it appears that both players are just chilling on the water, and I don't think either of them knows about the opponent docking the pond, and that is a correct assumption apparently. So, Chris winning the fights over here pretty decisively, to be honest, and the Scout and Archer play is working out here. Scout and Skirm would also work fine here, but with good micro, Scout and Archer is even better, and this is a very open map, so there's a lot of damage potential here for Chris to do. Scouts will pick off the isolated skirmisher, and the key here for Chris is that he needs to keep his scouts alive to make sure that the eagles cannot kill his units over here. And that's gonna be a lot of villagers pulled in for Daniel. Remember, Daniel has extra armor on his villagers because those are Inca Veils, and he actually got the armor upgrade. One of the reasons why Incas is so much beloved save on this map is because you will go for the eagles anyways and you will need the defense upgrade. Might as well have a civ where the defense upgrade for the infantry actually benefits your villagers as well and makes them less exposed to raids. That being said, the eco of Daniel is heavily idle, so it's one thing that he's losing wheels. It's idled heavily, but this is what I was afraid of for Chris. It's 2 minutes 23 seconds of idle time once again on that TC. I'm pretty sure he's just microing. But did he actually get any advantage from killing this many wheels? No. Why? Because Daniel has 17 seconds idle time, Chris has 2.5 minutes. If you do the maths, that's like 5-6 villagers we're talking about here. 5-6 villagers that Chris is missing because of the TC idle time. Daniel is missing like 1. 25 seconds would be 1. So he's like missing less than 1 villager from TC idle time. And no matter how many viewers you kill. This is one of the things that when I was coached by Dogao, one of the things I learned was, I think it's a very, very wise assumption, not assumption, but it's a very, very wise claim from Dogao. He says that low elo players over micro their units, and that's totally true. I'm not saying Chris is low elo. I'm saying that if you see a lot of low elo players play, they oftentimes feel like they're micro gods, right? I have also met players at 1300 that were like, oh, he's microing so good, but behind that he has no eco because he's idling his TC because he can't focus on doing that, right? The thing is that this is exactly something that's happening to Chris as well. And I think what Dogao said was, it's better not to just micro like crazy good and keep the TC working. Now, of course, as I said, Chris is playing well. The only thing that he is having, like, the only thing that's missing for Chris is that TC that's working. Everything else is very good from his gameplay. The game plan, and let's be honest, his fishing eco is still carrying him forward. The problem is that Danny Boy is up to Castle Age, and that's why the Voyager difference is this big. And when Castle Age hits, Eagle Warriors will come out, and Feudal Age units don't stop Eagle Warriors. So the differences between this game and the previous one is that in the previous one, Daniel got to Knights, and Knights will eat the Eagle Warriors. And here, Feudal Age units don't actually do that. Even if Daniel loses Vils here, on such open and aggressive maps, the thing is that it doesn't matter that you lose Vils. You lose Vils, but you will get up to Castle Age and use that power spike to just raid your opponent to death, right? So, yes, Daniel is gonna be behind in a few Vils. Yes, that's totally correct. But now, he's gonna have a bunch of Eagle Warriors, and it's not like Chris can do anything against that. Scouts will not be amazing, Men-at-Arms will be slow, Archers don't do anything against that. And if you also look at how much idle time Chris had, 3 minutes, this is about 200 seconds, it's like 9 Vils. Chris could be at 65 Vils, and if he looks at these tournament recordings, I feel like the biggest thing that he needs to fix is TC idle time. I'm not sure if he's using the select all TC's hotkey. Maybe he is not using that. And like, if he was using that, he can actually queue up a Voyager even though he's microing it because he doesn't have to jump back home. But that's definitely something that he needs to fix because without that, he won't be able to get forward in competitive play. Doesn't matter how many Vils you kill if your TC is idle. He killed 10 Voyagers, actually, yeah, he killed 10 Voyagers, but he's got more than 10 Voyagers of idle time. 11. Every 25 seconds your TC is idle, you lose 1 Voyager. And he actually lost more Voyagers having his TC idle than what he actually killed in here. Now, Daniel is also having some TC idle time over here, but it is still not even remotely close to what Chris had. So, and also I think that Daniel's somewhat intentionally idling his TC right now, knowing that it is a priority for him to go for the Eagles. This is a play that I didn't like him when he did it last round versus Jordan, that he's making 5 barracks. There is no way you make 5 barracks and TC work with 10 farmers. There's no way. I feel like this is an overinvestment from Daniel, and if we talk about what he has to fix, this is it. What do you actually want to do with... he's trying to convert a scout. That's not a wise thing to do, my friend. So, what Daniel needs to fix is that he shouldn't go for 5 barracks when he obviously doesn't have the eco to make them work. 3 barracks and consistent production is much better than 5 barracks and idling 2 of them. Like, look at this. Right now 4 of them is producing, but TC might be idle very soon because he's not gonna have food for the next batch. Regardless of that, it's Castle Age units versus Feudal Age units, so it's not like Chris can actually beat it back. Chris has 10 Voyagers lead, but, like, see, Daniel now has to idle TC because he's able to make Eagles on 5 barracks, but idles the TC. What if you just did 4 barracks and kept the TC working? Same thing that I said about Chris applies to Daniel as well. It doesn't matter that you're taking good fights if your TC is idle, and you're just gonna fall behind in Voyager count because, you know, you don't add eco. Quite a lot of wheels coming in here for Daniel. Remember that he's got insane armor on those Voyagers as well. And he's just trying to come in here and take down the tower. Force Chris off from gold. The problem is that Chris is always taking fights with feud lage units against cast lage units, and that's not gonna work. That's just not gonna work. At some point, the inefficiency of the fights that Chris is taking is really going to show, and it looks like Daniel is gonna have an easier time here against Chris than Jordan. Huge opportunity here for Daniel to get into the main event. It's going to be the highlight of his career when he gets into the main event of Red Bull, and I think he's very close to that because this seems like a 3-0. I mean, Chris isn't even remotely close to picking up the castle age, and like he's trying his best spamming the scouts. He even has the fishing eco going for him, but in reality, when Chris would reach castle age, he would have even Voyager count compared to Daniel. That is because of this idle time. And as I said, I also disagree with Daniel idling that TC for that long. I don't think it's necessary. But yeah, Chris has to fix this idle time thing. I thought it was just a one-time thing on his acclivity game, but it appears that it seems to be a consistent problem for him. Which is also good news because that, like, this pretty much explains why he's losing games, and if he can fix that, he's going to be very, very good. But he needs to fix that. And until he doesn't fix TC idle time like that, he is going to be nowhere close to being able to compete in tournaments nowadays. Because if you actually checked out Daniel, who is not even a top 20 player probably, or at least not consistently, even he had like a very, very low idle time on his TC. If you want to play against top 20 players like, or even top 10 players like Harold, Lear, they have like 0 idle time. And this is something that needs to be cleaned up. Anyways, I don't blame Chris for this one. He signed up and he's playing well. As I said, everything that he's doing makes sense. It's just a little bit of I feel like he's a little bit slow. And that's actually something that's pretty hard to fix, but it's also positive news because he has a very, very good understanding of the game, which is something that we expected. And I think that also applies to the new civilizations. But he needs to really get into the pace of this competitive scene. It's very hard, especially if you even have to go for Empire Wars, which is a much more fast-paced version of the game. So, really no shame for Chris, even if he loses 4-0 over here. Obviously, I would be a little bit sad. But, yeah, absolutely. Lowering that idle time is, like, flat out what Chris should do if he wants to prepare for next tournament. What he needs to do and practice is actually keeping that TC working while microing. Because, and this is where it really shows what I'm always saying at Leary. Leary has flashy micro, but that's just one thing. Leary has an insane macro behind that one. If you see Leary, that's the beautiful thing about Leary's gameplay. He's microing like crazy, and yet he still doesn't have TC idle time. He still is having an extremely efficient and balanced eco. And that's what is top age vampires nowadays. That you micro well and you have to macro well as well. There is like 4 or 5 people that can do it right now. Those are the top 5 basically. The rest of them are just depending on how good a certain player is, like the ranking of these players are just depending on how good they can actually do these and how many mistakes they make in the process. I think there's like 5 players that actually can really have a crystal clean micro and macro combination with them. Anyways, we'll have game number 4 coming up here. Decider game. Daniel is playing right side as Ethiopians in red and opening up in the archer range, no surprise. Left side is Chris playing as Lithuanians in yellow. And Lithuanians is a save that makes a lot of sense for this map. You have a bunch of relics in the middle, but you have to be able to get the middle for that, and that's the tricky part. Other side, scouts opening from Chris, not necessarily a fan of this. I feel like skirms make a little bit more sense for him immediately, because starting scouts will not be super amazing, and they will be repelled by an early spearman. So 3 archers and the spearman will be very problematic for Chris to deal with until a skirmisher comes in. So I feel like you probably want to prioritize archer range here first and then add stable later. If Daniel wins this game, he will win more prize money than he did so far in his AoE career. I'm not sure about Daniel. I think Daniel got some nice prize monies because he played in Battle of Africa. He played in KOTD. He has been around, and he has been playing in many smaller events as well. So I think slowly the prize money piled up, but definitely it's going to be the biggest achievement of Daniel's career if he gets into the main event of this event. And depending on who he gets as an opponent, if he gets one of the weaker players, he might even have a chance to do very, very good over there. This is why I feel like you open skirms instead of opening scouts. Because right now you have one skirmisher and you have 3 scouts, but the 3 scouts are just being absolutely denied by 2 spearmen over here. And see? You don't have enough skirms to battle the spearmen. You don't get anything out of those scouts because you don't have something that kills the spears. This is why you open skirms first and add the scouts later if you're playing Lithuanians here in this scenario. Also worth noting that Daniel is going to be fully walled, Chris not so far, and this is very bad. Look at this. Daniel 2 villagers ahead. Daniel didn't do anything. 0 villagers killed. All he did is make his TC work. 1 second idle time against 1 minute 1 second. Result, 2 villagers lead for Daniel. 2 villagers lead for absolutely no villagers killed. And this is why that is just so much emphasized that until you get to the top 100 basically, all you prioritize is just making that TC work. Chris is in the top 100, but obviously that's a mistake that he's still doing, and it appears that to be a consistent mistake from him. So that's already 2 villagers advantage for Daniel, and Daniel didn't even do anything. He's going to dock the pond. Actually, that's Chris docking the pond over there, so he might be able to compensate for that eco deficit, but Daniel's going straight towards Castle Age, and remember that if he gets to Castle Age first, he's gonna have crossbows and he can deny the middle. He's gonna have 3 pikemen. The 3 pikemen will help out against early knights, and I have a feeling that Chris might not be able to grab the relics in the middle because he's not gonna have control over the middle. I need an idle TC pointer. Is there anything like that? I don't know about any idle TC pointers. Because it's very situational. Which TCs are idle? Sometimes you have multiple TCs. But anyways, Castle Age is going to be slightly better over here for Daniel. He's just going to wait with the crossbows or archers back at home until he can get crossbows out of them. Then move out, probably pick up the relics himself. Like, that's the grand plan for Daniel, I believe. Maybe even make a few spearmen while going up so he can have some pikes out in case Chris would have knights out. And Chris is stonewalling himself, but that's like a white flag, I feel like. It's a white flag being waved that you stonewall yourself like this. The problem is that if you stonewall yourself, you will be left out of the party in the middle, and Daniel's gonna have an easy 5 relic game. 5 relics means a bunch of gold miners, so that's going to be another huge eco advantage for Daniel, who has the same villager count as Chris, but he's already halfway up to Castle Age, whereas Chris just clicked up here. This is something that Chris is gonna have to fix. I'm a little bit sad about this series because I expected a little bit more from Chris, not gonna lie, and I'm curious how Bhakti lost. Like, it's either Chris having a pretty bad day and just underperforming, or Bhakti had an awful series yesterday. Like, if Chris was beating him with this much TC idle time, then Bhakti had to play awful. That's the only way that happens. So, Castle Age is in, and that faster Castle Age is going to help immensely for Daniel because you can prevent the Lithuanian player from grabbing those relics for themselves. Yeah, Bhakti obviously struggles with consistency, but I mean, especially after 2v2 World Cup, where I feel like in 2v2 World Cup he delivered his best performance ever since Definitive Edition was released, I actually expect a little bit more from Bhakti, and it's either Chris playing better in that series, or Bhakti played awful if he lost to Chris, with Chris having this much idle time. Anyways, this is looking bad for Chris, not gonna lie. Because, like, Chris is up to castle, but here's the catch. He's gonna go triple stable knights, and this is why Ethiopians are so fun on this map. You can make free pike, or the pikemen immediately. So you don't need to invest into pikeman upgrade, which helps a lot. Like, this helps an awful lot, actually, that you don't have to make the pikeman upgrade. So you can get some nice pikemen out on the field as well and pick off those early knights. Also, these little mazes that the berries create make it very, very hard for the knights to actually kill the crossbows because there are so many choke points. That's something that we all had to talk about as well. I think last Red Bull we talked about this, that melee units struggle to kill archers on Kawasan in the middle unless you have mangonel support to them. So, fast tumbling in here as well. Chris is making knights. He's got +1 defense, no other upgrades. And as I said, I feel like this is the moment where Daniel just needs to move out to the Voyager, get a monastery in here, pick up the relics. You want to pick up those relics because you also want to prevent the Lithuanian player from actually being able to access them. 4 Voyagers advantage for Daniel right now. And, well, I think Daniel doesn't see the dock yet. I don't think they know about each other's docks, but I think Daniel is soon going to find his opponent's dock, whereas I'm not sure if Chris is going to see this dock over here on the right side. Yeah, I don't think that he knows about that. And it looks like Daniel is actually having a pretty unlucky scouting here. He just misses out on that part where the dock is at. Does it matter? Depends. I feel like Daniel is going a little bit too greedy here. If those crossbows were camping in the middle, there would be no trouble. There would be absolutely no trouble for them. But this is a little bit overly ambitious, even with Chris engaging before getting the +2 defense against Ethiopian crossbows with Thumbring. But that feels like a bunch of crossbows thrown away. I feel like Daniel should have played a little bit more passive and hold in the middle, because one thing that he gives now is a chance for Chris to potentially take control over the middle, grab some relics, and then things could snowball. Now that being said, it looks like Daniel is going to add some camels here. But it's not like there's a huge amount of camels, and yeah, he's gonna have to hold the middle now. That was a bad decision from Daniel, too greedy in my perspective. He tried pushing Chris, but Chris punished him quite hard. Those crossbows would be much better used if they were just here, in these choke points, where they're just denying the knights from getting through, and making sure Daniel's able to pick up the relics. Not sure why Daniel is not picking up the relics here. I feel like he kinda has to. And we have forging coming in here. Now come the pikemen. Something that I feel like could have happened or should have happened a little bit earlier. Some monks as well on the way. But here's the siege shot from Chris. I feel like Daniel is giving a shot here to Chris. Chris is not supposed to have a chance if Daniel plays this perfectly. But it appears that Chris is gonna have his chance. Because Daniel didn't play it perfectly. And it appears that he's still making fishing ships here. The players don't know about each other on this pond. So whoever realizes the opponent is close a little bit faster is gonna be the one that will probably grab an upper hand in the water fight. Now, it looks like Daniel is actually trying to secure relics over here and a monastery at the back of his base. Imagine if he started doing this a little bit earlier. Like, right now the problem is that he can no longer just hug these choke points with the crossbows because there are scorpions and mangonels coming in here. Chris, by the way, is still insane amount of idle time on his TC, and that is looking scary. I mean, 67 to 52 Voyagers, and both players are on 1 TC. Obviously, that's 10 fishing ships for Daniel and 4 for Chris, but that will account for 6 difference, and there is 16 difference. So there's a 10 Voyager difference on land between these two players, and that's actually very, very scary right now for Chris. That being said, he's in a good position to pick up 4 relics. As I said, I feel like Daniel went too aggressive with those crossbows, and he has thrown away his opportunity to secure the relics for himself when he had the chance, and he no longer has the chance because Chris is able to mix in some siege. I don't think that was a good decision from Daniel, and as I said, I feel like sometimes he's making some bad decisions, and that can cost him games against stronger opposition, and that, I think, is absolutely the case over here. In fact, Chris might punish Daniel very hard for this one, and that would actually give a lot of motivation to Chris if he's actually able to win this game over here. It's still not guaranteed though. He's got some light calves out to try and pick off the monks. Pikemen are still immensely helpful here. This is why I love the Ethiopian trick from Daniel, because it gives you a very, very good bunch of crossbows and pikemen, and it turns out that Chris resigns. I think he understands that he has nothing to that can deal with those pikemen and crossbows anymore. Daniel edges this one out, but that was a little bit too greedy moving in there. Really, I'm sad for Chris, but it's also the fact that like Chris has recently returned to competitive Age of Empires. There is still a lot of catching up to do for him. I think that it was a very well-deserved performance from Daniel. He beat everybody that actually came his way. Chris didn't put up the biggest resistance ever, not gonna lie. But this is a huge opportunity for Daniel to show what he can do in a 1v1 tournament. Chris losing 4-0 here to Danny Boy. Chris will maybe try to qualify again, but I feel like, once again, I started this series saying that when Chris returned to streaming, Chris said that he isn't here to play major tournaments. He's just here to stream and have fun. Probably he saw how many streamers are there in AoE and how many viewers they have, and he really sees that, streaming Age of Empires here is something that a lot of people are interested in nowadays, and a lot of people are interested in seeing high-level players stream their POV in just ranked games as well. And he decided to sign up. Didn't work out well for him. I think he can still be proud of himself. Losing in the Deciders is not something to be ashamed of, and I think the path is clear for Chris. He needs to clean up that ugly TC idle time thing, and then he's gonna be able to compete in the highest level once again. Congrats, Daniel, for getting into the main event as the last player from the first qualifiers, which means that as he's the last player from the first qualifiers, there's only 4 spots left to take in Red Bull Wololo 3. That's going to be in next week. So it is, I think, January 9 and 10th that we're going to have the second set of qualifiers. Everybody who hasn't qualified today can still attempt to qualify over there, but there will be a lot of high-level players once again attempting to qualify, so it's going to be a tough one. Congrats to Danny Boy for winning this and getting into the main event.